Hey guys, welcome to the Banning Liebscher podcast. Once again, it is your favorite substitute teacher. That's what I'm going for now. The substitute to the Banning Liebscher podcast. It's me, Becky Johnson. Always a pleasure to be with you guys for just a few moments, sharing a weekly thought and nugget of wisdom or whatever we call these things that we are processing here together as we grow as leaders and followers of Jesus. I'm excited about this week's thought to share with you guys. It's something that I have been sitting on for quite some time, and it's around the idea of the key to longevity. Not saying that I know the key to longevity. I will admit I am on the younger side of a leader, but I think a lot of people are asking this question. A lot of leaders in the church, a lot of people in ministry are asking, how can we make sure that we last? How do we make sure we're positioned for a life of longevity in following Jesus and actually in whatever it might be as we all fulfill our assignment? We want to be people who are in this, for the long haul. Like Paul says, we run our race to the finish. So all that to say, I'm asked quite often on panels or different interviews on the key to longevity. And I will say, most of the time, I will immediately shoot back and say, hey, I think it's wise to ask someone further along in their years than I am about the key to longevity. But for what it's worth, I do think about this. And I think one of the keys to longevity and one of the keys to feeling successful in what we're doing is the concept that we find in Nehemiah of building the wall in front of you. Maybe you've heard the story of Nehemiah. It's a book in the Bible, and Nehemiah it's a great leadership book. Actually, like if you're into John Maxwell and Craig Rochelle and all the Chris Hodges and the leadership principles, make sure you are digesting the book of Nehemiah, which has some of the most phenomenal leadership principles in the Bible. So we don't have time for all the context, but Nehemiah is serving as cupbearer to a king outside of Jerusalem, and he hears about his native people in Jerusalem, and the wall around the city has been destroyed. And what happens is God places this burden on Nehemiah to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild the wall. A wall around a city in those days was extremely important, and it was the strength of the city was in the wall around it. It's what fortified the city, protected them against enemies. So it was a big deal. So Nehemiah gets this burden from the Lord to go back, and he gets permission from the king. He goes back and he rallies the people in some of the most prolific and phenomenal leadership moves that you'll read about. He rallies the people to begin to rebuild this wall, which is a massive undertaking. And the book goes through this process of their journey of rebuilding the wall. And in Nehemiah 4, some opposition begins as they're building the wall. There are some adversaries, Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, and the Ammonites. They hear that the walls of Jerusalem are being restored, and it says the gaps are being closed, and they became very angry, and they conspired together to come and attack Jerusalem and create confusion. This is in Nehemiah chapter 4. And basically, they come and they just begin to make fun of the work. They begin to try to discourage Nehemiah and his fellow workers on the wall. Hey, you're never going to be able to do this. This is such a ridiculous attempt. Who's going to see this rubble restored to a wall? And they're just critiquing and they're naysaying and they're nitpicking and they're trying to discourage them with verbal assault and attack the work that they're doing. And what you see is Nehemiah says, hey, don't listen to them. Keep building the wall. And he makes some moves to strengthen the work, and he puts some guards up and he posts people around the wall. And he just, the whole point is, hey, keep building the wall, keep going, keep doing the work that we are setting out to do. And it's this picture of the Lord started to speak to me when I was reading this one day. And I thought, oh my gosh, how many of us would not pass this test of distraction? I think one of the enemies of longevity is distraction. from building the wall, distraction from the assignment God has given us. Here's Nehemiah and his fellow Israelites, and they're building the wall in front of them. And this is the task that God has assigned them to do. This is what they're called to do in this moment. And here come naysayers, here come distractions, here comes critique, trying to get them to stop building the wall, stop doing what God has tasked you to do. And I thought, it's a perfect analogy of what we experience when we set out to do what God's asked us to do. Distractions are going to come. Critics are going to discourage us. Someone is going to have an opinion, naysayers, whatever it may be. And what those enemies represent, Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs and the Ammonites, what they represent can be in our life today. It could be, people who don't believe in what we're doing. It could be actual people, actual critics that will try to come and discourage you from doing what God's asked you to do. People who think that there's a different way or a better way to do what you're doing. Social media, I think, is one of the greatest distractions that we face today. Do you know what I think when I hear about the people at the bottom of the wall criticizing the work being done? I think that's the landscape of the scroll, of social media scroll. It's comparison. It pulls you out of the moment, takes you off of the wall, pulls you out of what you have been assigned to do, what God has given you a burden to do, as we begin to scroll and see people who are doing better work, people who are doing more important things, people who have differing opinions, people who think we're doing it wrong. I mean, just the sheer magnitude of distraction that scrolling can do, and it pulls you out of the assignment. And what we see Nehemiah do, he says, don't worry about what they're saying at the bottom of the wall. Here's the thing, guys. People who are not building will always have opinions about those who are. People who are not doing the work, people who are not fulfilling the assignment are always going to have opinions and things to say about those who are busy doing the tasks that God has given them. And I think we have to be really vigilant about this and have to be on guard. Build the wall in front of you. Whatever burden God has given you, and he's given each and every one of us a burden and an assignment. We believe this. Whatever he has given you a burden for, whatever you have been assigned to do in this moment, do it without distraction. Recognize who or what is at the bottom of that wall, calling up to you, trying to discourage you, trying to get you to come down, trying to distract you from the work that you are doing. It's different for all of us in different seasons as well. Like I said, it could be family members, it could be friends, it could be peers, coworkers, culture itself. Culture is the adversary at the bottom of the wall for the people of God who are busy building the kingdom, advancing the kingdom, doing the work. Culture is at the bottom of the wall saying, do you really think you're going to make an impact? Do you really think that truth wants to be heard? Do you really think that you can restore out of all of this mess and rubble? You think you can restore truth? You think you could stand for holiness? This is the echo. And they're at the bottom of the wall. And Nehemiah says, don't listen to them. Don't come down. Don't be distracted. Keep working. And here's why. One, it's going to keep you in the game. This is one of the keys to longevity. Ignoring those distractions, not letting that pervade your mindset and discourage you. And I love what Nehemiah 4, verse 14 says. Nehemiah says, and I looked and arose and said, so the enemies have come at the bottom of the wall. They're attacking them, distracting them, discouraging them. And I looked and arose and said to the nobles, to the leaders, and the rest of the people, here's the words of Nehemiah, the great leader. Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses. We have to fight for our families. We have to fight for our communities. The work that you are doing, why are you doing it? Why is longevity important? Why is doing the work of the kingdom and staying true to your assignment? Why is that important? Why do we need you to do that? For your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses, for the families of God, the community of God, and the people of God. We have to continue building. We cannot get distracted. We cannot become afraid of the noise of distraction, the noise at the bottom of the wall, trying to get us to stop working. We have to continue to fight. We have to stay. And so it's this, we have to stay on guard in our thoughts, in our hearts, and in our very work. We have to stay. It's this posture. They are being positioned to take stances and be on guard against the adversary. Why? For our families, for our communities, for our houses, for our sons, for our daughters. You know what? You know why longevity in your life matters? For the children, for your children, for those that will come after you. You might not see them now. You might not even be married or have kids, but you've got to begin to live with eternity in mind and live with legacy in mind. And Nehemiah understood this. This wall that I'm building is not about so much us in this moment, but it's about for those that will come after us. We need to fortify this city, not for the present day, but for the future. So your assignment matters greatly. Not just for today. It matters for tomorrow. It matters for the generations that will come after you. So I wanted to encourage you, keep building. And you know what? I think far too often we are looking for distraction-free zones. We're looking for critic-free seasons. We are looking for pressure-free ministry. I just don't think it's going to happen. There's no examples in the Bible where people were doing what God had assigned them to do and there wasn't an adversary. I mean, Jesus had an adversary. Noah's building the ark and people are coming against him. It's just whatever, Paul, you go through the great heroes of the Bible, Moses. The adversary is there and is real, but what we see in Scripture is the posture to take to rise above it and how to respond. You know what would not have been helpful? For Nehemiah to come down, pull all the people, the nobles and the leaders and the warriors and the men on the wall, pull them all down, and let's go get in a fight with those that say we're being ridiculous, with those that want to discourage us. Let's go get in the fight. Guys, that's what distraction does. It pulls you into the fight. You know what a modern day distraction at the bottom of the wall is? The comment section on social media. Don't get in meaningless squabbles because it's just a distraction from the actual building. And when we read this story, we see it's obvious. Nehemiah is not going to do anything by going down and getting in a fist fight or a verbal argument with these enemies. He keeps building the wall. He keeps people positioned. He's as a leader, he's telling the people, stay focused, stay vigilant. Don't worry about it. Keep building. Close and this picture of the wall, it's closing the gaps. Close the gaps in your life where there's weaknesses and vulnerabilities to distraction and to enemies and to discouragement. Close those gaps. Fortify your life. Fortify the wall in front of you. Keep going with the assignment. And listen, Nehemiah could have gotten very discouraged because he heard the Lord at the beginning of the book. He gets this deep burden for his city and his people. I have to go back. I have to rebuild the wall. And it's a monumental task. What was the last word of the Lord over your life? And have you doubted the assignment simply because there's been a bunch of noise? Simply because there's been a bunch of discouragement, a bunch of people trying to distract you or things. And I think what happens is we're not in a position to stay focused. We get distracted, we get off the wall, and then we lose confidence in our assignment. And then we begin to wonder, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do in life. I don't know what God has for me. And we feel hopeless. And this is the cycle that many of us can get in. And this is why I strongly believe it's the enemy to longevity, is getting off the wall and being distracted. So stay vigilant, stay focused, keep going. I want to encourage you in that whatever assignment you are on, keep going. And when do you stop? When the wall is completed, when the work is done. And that noise at the bottom, that noise in your phone, that noise in culture, that noise on your campus, in your workplace, whatever it may be, just know it's only an attempt of the enemy to distract you from the work that you are doing. So stay building. You've got work to do. We have work to do. And if you need a reminder why, Nehemiah 4, verse 14. Remember, it's not just about today and you, but it's about those that will come after you. It's about tomorrow. It's about the future. We need those in ministry and those in leadership and those advancing God's kingdom. We need to have longevity in mind and be living for that and towards that. So I want to encourage you, and then I want to challenge you. If you have gotten off the wall, get back on there. If you have put down the tools that God has given you and blessed you with, if you have stopped using your talents and your time and your energy towards the plans and purposes of God because of adversaries, because of discouragement, because of distraction, get back in the game. Get back to work. You got this. All right, guys, always a pleasure being with you on the Banning Liebscher podcast. Take this principle and this practice with you throughout the week. Challenge yourself and be encouraged. We believe in you. We love you at Jesus Culture. Thanks for being a part of the Jesus Culture Podcast Network. We have many other shows. Go check them out, and we'll see you next time.